He is not. Okay, I'm going to go to the gentlelady from Detroit, Michigan, Ms. Tlaib, for your 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you so much, Chairman. My first question is to Assistant Director Langen. Do you have any evidence that Antifa formally exists as an organization?
Ma'am, we do not look into domestic organizations, so I don't have any.
So there's no
further
formal,
data.
there's no evidence that Antifa is an organization in our country?
I can't speak to that, ma'am.
So let me, now that I get that a little bit clear here, I'm very concerned about an exception that gives way for systemic, I think, targeting, I believe, of Black, Muslim, and immigrant communities, which I believe is dangerous and can pull resources away from real dangers in our country. The strategy document produced by the Biden administration maintains an exception in 2014 through the Department of Justice's guidance that permits racial or ethnic profiling in cases of, quote, national security or, quote, border investigations. We know that hundreds of documents show that Department of Homeland Security used its powers to collect information of Black Lives Matter activists for years since the protests in Ferguson, Missouri after the murder of Michael Brown. Just last summer, DHS used aircraft to monitor Black Lives Matter protests in at least 15 cities across the country. Isn't that right, Mr. Cohen?
Congressman, I wasn't at the department at that time, so I have no insights regarding those activities.
Well, I think it's racist, unacceptable, and must end. I'd like to turn to another element of the strategy document that deeply concerns me and concerns many civil liberties attorneys as well as advocates. The focus on how suspected potential domestic terrorists increasingly utilize social media and other internet forums to organize. Under existing rules, the FBI may conduct online surveillance assessments without a factual predicament or something of sort of criminal wrongdoing. So this invasive type of what they call proto-investigation has been used by the FBI to target Black civil rights activists, and given the FBI's lax attitude towards white supremacist infiltration of our law enforcement that my good colleague from New York brought up, raises serious, very serious civil liberties concerns. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to submit an article, this article by the former FBI agent Michael German.
Yes, indeed,
Thank you.
Yeah, without an objection.
Explaining how the FBI has abused its investigative powers. I'd like to add that in just the past few years, y'all, FBI conducted an intelligence operation called, quote, the Iron Fist, that prioritized surveillance of so-called, quote, Black identity extremists over increasingly active and violent white supremacist groups. I'm going to repeat that. They're using more resources to go towards so-called, through the Iron Fist program of some sort, Black identity extremists over active, violent white supremacist groups in our country. So, Mr. Langen, yes or no, has Iron Fist or similar programs used to target Black activists for surveillance been totally dismantled under the current administration? Yes or no?
Ma'am, I have to look into the aspects of that investigation, but as far as when it comes to First Amendment freedom activity, the FBI vehemently defends the civil liberties of Americans and is part of our dual-pronged approach of both protecting Americans and also protecting their rights.
So, Assistant Director, is the FBI currently conducting any surveillance right now of Black Lives Matter movement?
Ma'am, for one, I can't speak to current ongoing investigations, but we only would focus surveillance on individuals that we believe are going to be involved in or promoting violence against other individuals.
So you don't know if the Iron Fist is still active, this so-called Iron Fist program of some sort? Is that active right now through the FBI?
I can look into it, ma'am, and we'll definitely get back to your office.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, the FBI's action in this so-called Black identity extremist program at best indirectly aided white supremacy in our country and put many of us in danger and continues to endanger our country. So time and time again, we give the FBI another chance to right its wrongs, and time again, it proves itself incapable of acting as an organization without racial bias. The failure, really, truly, specifically to address these issues in the strategy document itself requires Congress to consider whether it must act on its own to codify safeguards to prevent a reoccurrence of this kind of discriminatory overreach we saw in prior eras of counterterrorism. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this critically important hearing, and I yield.